Hello, good evening. Welcome to our next Azure Zurich User Group meetup session. Now this evening we want to talk about your Zero Trust game plan for 2022 by Martin Meyer. Before he will start the topic, just okay. I got some trouble with my presentation. 1 moment, please. Yes, perfect. So just a few words to our group, who we are, if you don't know yet. So we are Manuel, Carl, and me organizing these meetup groups. You can find our contact details over this page. And just a few words about an outlook, what we are planning in the next time. We started kind of end of last year our AKS series in December, and we will continue the series with more topics on that. So the next for in this series, part number 2, will be on the 18th of January with an introduction to the AKS service, and followed by number 3 in February, where Mark Merzinger will tell us something about a project he made and where they made a migration from the Azure App Service to AKS. And already scheduled in March will be some advanced integration topics for the AKS service by Nico Meisenzahl. We will have other topics, at least 2, covering Dapper topics and advanced security topics, but they are not fixed scheduled now, but we will plan to do them. And today, on the 11th, as already told, your Zero Trust game plan by Martin Meyer. So I think that's enough and all on our side for the introduction. So I will hand over the stage to Martin.
Okay, thanks.
Let me, I give you stream and you should be ready to start.
Okay. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Manu. So I'm going full screen into my presentation. So hello, everyone. Welcome to my session, Your Zero Trust Game Plan for 2022. My name is Martin Meyer. I would like to welcome you to this session and thanks for having me. Just a few words to start about me. I'm a senior cloud engineer. I'm working at Scopewise. We're based in Marbach, Switzerland, but we're working with customers all over Switzerland. We're focusing on Azure and M365 topics, security, all that stuff in various customers, very different ones, smaller ones, bigger ones, all that there is. Yeah, I'm based in Winterthur. In my private time, I try to hike from time to time, cook something. Yeah, and my topics are mainly Azure, identity and security. Yeah, these are the topics I'm working with our customers. And I have been more passive community user, and now I thought it's the right time to share something hopeful, useful to you. And yeah, I would say just let's start. This is our agenda for today. It's just easy agenda where I'm just starting with a few words about Zero Trust and where it started. Then I show you the actual game plan, the actions that you can take to implement Zero Trust on your side or on your customer side, wherever. And at the end, we'll kind of wrap this all together and have some thoughts how you can proceed with this. Okay, let's start. Yeah, just a quick recap how the situation is and how and why we are here today. I would say we had a rough couple of years from a security side. it was a hard time. We had a lot of attacks going on. We had new attacks going on. You had to really keep up with all the updates coming in and how to implement all these new things against these attacks. And yeah, sometimes from time to time, I feel like this guy on the right there. And yeah, it has been really hard to keep up with all this. Yeah, just a few examples here from Switzerland. I'm sure you heard about a few of these. Interesting thing here is when you look at the dates, these are just a few news from the last, let's say, 2 or 3 months. And if you would do this from the whole 2021, there will be a lot more. So as you may heard, there's really a lot going on, and there's a lot going on in Switzerland especially. So yeah, we're as IT pros, we're really have to protect our customers, protect ourselves against this. And in these days, I would say cloud security is a really efficient way to confront this. Today, we're talking about Microsoft security products, Microsoft Security Trust, Zero Trust, but of course, there are other vendors out there and who would have a similar picture, who have similar solutions. But if you look at these numbers here, they're pretty impressive. This slide here is from an AVD workshop I give from time to time, and it's just a high-level perspective how Microsoft does security in these days. And of course, all these signals here, they are collecting daily. They're flowing into the product and they're flowing into the solution that Microsoft offers. So that's a pretty interesting solution to confront these messages here, to confront these attacks, and we're going deeper into this today. Okay, just a few words about Zero Trust. I promised that this session will not be about the framework, it will be about concrete actions. So, but just as really short introduction into the topic for those of you who are not familiar with. Yeah, it's a whole new picture these days. It's not only protecting the network. For now, it includes a lot more. So for me, it kind of started with this blog article here. It was written by Alex Weinert almost a year ago from now, and he was talking about the things that happen with the SolarWinds attacks and how to deal with this. Of course, SolarWinds was not that. Yeah, maybe for some of you was a deal in Switzerland, but it was a much bigger deal in the US, I would guess. But it doesn't matter. That kind of that day it changed the way I personally looked at security today. So he was talking about how on-premises attacks can spread to the cloud, to maybe to Azure itself, and I will show you some things how you can confront this with some measures, with some actions. Yeah, it's time to cut some course to on-premises again. This was not from the first time always the message. The message was in a hybrid world, you can synchronize everything, combine the two worlds, on-premises, cloud, and now it's going a little bit into the other direction, and we try to manage the worlds separate. But I will show you that later. Yeah, and then it continued with, maybe you know these graphics from Zero Trust. That was an early one, just giving you an overview how an environment looks today, how a cloud environment looks today. And now we are here. That is the actual Zero Trust framework. You see these areas here. Maybe you know this picture already. Zero trust happens in all these areas here. And today we will go through these areas and I will give you some advice what you can do in which tools that you can do it, which actions that you can take. And this is the absolute newest one here. I have to admit I have copied over. This one is from Microsoft Security Reference Architectures. You can download these slides. They're really, really interesting. I would recommend that you download these. They have a lot of zero trust slides in it, and they're really interesting and really nice graphics and everything. So let's see. You noticed here, it's the same areas that zero trust happens. And here you have already the tools, how you can implement zero trust. Of course, this is a Microsoft only thing here, and these are all Microsoft tools. But as you will see until the end of this presentation, it's pretty interesting how you can combine all these tools and to get the full zero trust picture at the end. It's really, I think they did a really good job to combine all these things together, and yeah, it's just a great solution to achieve zero trust in the end. Yeah, in the middle you see it's all about policies, mainly Microsoft conditional access policies. Maybe you already know about them, and I think most of us are using them already, so that's not really new. But of course they have some new features, and of course you have policies in other tools to configure too. But yeah, we will see about that just in the next couple of slides. Yeah. Okay, I would say let's continue with the actual game plan. So I promised not to do high-level zero trust slides and talk about the framework. So I think we just go right into the things that you can do. First of all, I apologize for these full slides here. It's a lot of text, but actually it's a thing that you can download later. I will give you the link and you can download the slides later, and you can check this in your free time and maybe go to your boss and say, hey, okay, let's do this in this year. And you will see that it's a lot of work that you have to do when you do all of these actions. So yeah, I think I just pick some of them out and explain it to you, and the rest you can check later. So that's the way it goes. Of course, maybe you would like to see how configure all this, but yeah, maybe we'll do a couple of more sessions where I can show you how it actually happens, how you configure it in the tool itself. So this is not really a demo session today. This is more just a plan, and if you would like to see demos and stuff, then we maybe can continue with other sessions about these topics with demos, of course, on these areas. Yeah, we start with identity, the identity area. Here we are talking about isolating admin accounts and groups. Again, this is the main goal here. So in the past, we were talking about synchronizing our on-premises Active Directory to Azure AD, and from now on, it's a little bit different. Of course, we synchronize the users and everything to Azure AD, but we should exclude the admin accounts now, and we should exclude the groups too. I will talk about that in the next slide. So I leave this like that. So I come back to it just in a second. Of course, in the identity area, there is a conditional access policy here. Maybe here is something new. Maybe you heard about there are templates now provided by Microsoft. You can click them together in the Azure portal and use them right away. I think they just have chosen a couple of situations from the customers. they use the most and put templates together for custom policies for some specific situations. Yeah, the other topics I think you heard about, and we are talking about these for quite some time now, but maybe I want that here point out too. MFA is something we're talking about for a long time now, but I was in a webinar from Microsoft Security. They were talking about the attack that happened to Grieso. That's a company in Switzerland too, and they had an account that had MFA disabled. They had MFA enabled for most of their users, and this specific account had MFA disabled. So maybe you should check your exemptions after that session. That can happen. I was surprised too, but yeah, it's a logical way. They are looking for accounts that have MFA disabled and pick these ones out. So that's not really a surprise, but yeah, I was surprised too. And I was going through my no MFA group and noticed that this one is too big, and yeah, you have to really reduce this. Maybe you don't need it at all, and can enable MFA for everyone. The passwordless discussion is going on for a while too now. So here are all the links that you have for these steps to take here, especially in the identity area. And this continues on a second slide. So you see in the identity area, there's a lot of zero trust actions going on, mainly in Azure AD, of course, with Azure AD tools. But there are also tools available, maybe Defender for Identity. This was renamed. This was Azure Advanced Threat Protection in the past. Now it's called Defender for Identity. This is a quite interesting product to install. You have to install an agent on your domain controls, and then you can detect and monitor your Active Directory signals from on-premises, and this product will give you some advice how what happens, and if there are some threat, if there is something going on that is unusual, you will be noticed in Defender for Identity. Yeah, I think this product is quite underrated. I don't know a lot of customers that have it. Maybe it's because you have to install an agent on a domain control. That's kind of a special thing, and it connects to the cloud, of course. But I would recommend it if you don't know it to look into it. It gives you really good insights. And of course, you have the same thing here that this traffic is analyzed by Microsoft, and it's based on all the signals that are collected on the Azure platform and on other customers, and you are kind of protected from the newest attacks with these products. Yeah, the other things, I would say I leave it like this. In the end, Microsoft says, maybe you can think about provisioning your users in Azure Active Directory itself. Yeah, that may be an outlook for later, but yeah, that could be a thing in the future that if a new employee begins at your company, his user gets created directly in Azure AD. But these days, most of the customers is, of course, Active Directory on premises is the master Active Directory, and the user is created there. But that's just a strategy maybe for the future to think about. And here's also a link about this. Okay. Yeah, I mentioned that we should stop synchronizing everything. And of course, when we are talking about synchronizing, we are talking about Azure AD Connect. And I would give you a first advice here. Maybe you know this guy here. He's never joking, so you should listen to him. Yeah. That's one configuration that you should really disable if you still have it, or if your customer has it. So that's one thing that you shouldn't do anymore. If this is marked like this here, you synchronize just the whole directory. That's actually never needed. So you would synchronize tons of objects into your Azure Active Directory that you never need in the cloud. And it makes no sense that they are there, and it's not secure that these objects are placed in Azure Active Directory. So if you have it like this, you should change it, and you should change it to attribute filtering. That would be one option below, or that's another option that you can configure in here. And that's when you set an attribute, and all the objects that have these attributes get synchronized to Azure AD, and the others are not. If you would configure it like this below, then you have to choose organizational units. Maybe you can't do it like this because these units are too big, and then you should configure attribute filtering anyway. Good. Let's talk about admin accounts, especially in Azure AD. Of course, we're talking about still the identity area, and we're talking about Azure admin accounts now. So I told you should create the admin's account in Azure AD itself. So I give you just some advice why you should do this and how to do it. So that's what the blog said from Alex about a year ago. It said you should divide the admin's account, the admin accounts again. So in the past, we synchronized almost everything, and of course, we synchronized the admin accounts. So most of you did this, I would guess. So that should be one thing that you should this topic here you should really do maybe next week, tomorrow, really soon. So you should use different admin accounts for on-premises Active Directory and another admin account for Azure AD, and this admin account for Azure AD exists only in Azure AD. So it's a cloud-only admin account. That's why it's called like this. And if you create, it's easy. You just create a new user in Azure AD directly. Yeah, of course, when you do this, you have to think about the naming concept, a new naming concept, and of course, your admins, your IT admins, have to remember a new user account. So, but I would say that's not that big of a deal. We all have to use different accounts, and this is not that big of a deal, I think. But you need to have kind of a naming concept for this. That's like cloud admin Martin Meyer at Contoso. Some people would say it's not secure to use admin in the username. That's, of course, one point to think about. Maybe you should leave the admin out of the name, of course. That's one thing to think about. If you do it, you should think about emailing, of course, too. So maybe if you have to send emails, if you have to send alerts, if alerts are received, you need to think about if this new account has an email or has an alias, email forwarding, some kind of solution you will figure out, but you just think about the email thing here. Then, of course, this guy needs a license. I think if you synchronize your admins anyway, you have these licenses already, and you can just switch them over to the new cloud-only admin accounts. If you plan something and you buy these, I would really suggest that you buy Azure AD P2 and not P1. It's not that much more expensive, and it has just a lot more features when you buy P2. So it's really recommended that you just buy the whole things. Of course, when you do it, you need to prepare kind of a cutover when you switch the accounts. At a specific day, you will switch these accounts, and then, of course, you need to provide the roles that you had configured to the synchronized admin accounts. You need to provide the same role to the cloud admin now. You need to provide maybe the RBAC permissions or whatever this guy needs. Of course, that's an important one. You need to think about your conditional access policies, that they are using the new group. Maybe you create a new group for cloud admins, and you need to place this in the conditional access policy too. So maybe there you have a specific MFA conditional access policy, and you need to put the group. You need to place the group there, of course. Yeah, when you have done it afterwards, of course, you need to remove your on-premises admin accounts. So that's really important one that you should not forget if you do it. Remove your old accounts that they are going away from Azure AD, and then you will have a clean Azure AD with cloud-only admin accounts, and of course all your users, the user accounts, they will still be there. It will not change anything, but of course your admin accounts will be only the new ones. Maybe you need to adjust your on-premises account a little bit, maybe move them to a different unit or whatever. If you do it, it's maybe a good time to check the roles for your new cloud admin. If you switch these users all, it's really a good time to check, has anybody too high roles? Maybe he doesn't need it anymore. Maybe one guy is not working here anymore. I remove him, he gets not a new account. And of course, it would be a good time to activate PIM, privileged identity management. That is one thing, maybe you know it already, that if the user log in, he needs to go into PIM and activate his role. That would be a really good time to activate PIM if you not have it already. So that's PIM is just a thing to do if maybe I'm on holidays or whatever, my admin account has kind of no permissions, and then I come back, log into the Azure portal, go to PIM, activate my let's say, global administrator role, and then I have my rights back, kind of. But in the time I'm away, my admin account is kind of empty, let's say. Of course, this needs some automation, like everything. You need to have a process in place to do it for new cloud admins accounts in the future. So if new colleagues start at your company and you need to provide them an admin account, maybe you should think about creating these Azure AD accounts by a script. That's pretty easy with Azure Automation, or you just shoot Azure PowerShell script right into Azure. So there are tons of possibilities to achieve this. Yeah, if you have no time to do this, I told you should do it tomorrow. Maybe if you do it next week, you should think about at least remove your inactive cloud account, your inactive cloud admins. If you synchronize the admin account still, maybe you should analyze them from time to time and check if somebody is in Azure AD that shouldn't be there anymore, that has too high roles or whatever. Just remove them. That's just a small workaround for this. The same topic is about groups. So I will go through this a little bit faster. It's the same approach to say, of course, group is kind of a different thing. So it's a little bit more complicated. We synchronized our on-premises groups and use them maybe, let's say, on an Azure subscription for an app or whatever. Of course, a lot of you will have synchronized groups in Azure assigned, let's say. And here, maybe you need a little bit more preparation. So check your Azure portal where you have these groups assigned and start creating Azure AD groups. You can just go into Azure AD, create group, give them a name, and I will show that to you later about the names and the group types. But yeah, just analyze your groups and remove them from step by step. So this is the next point. You can do this on the fly, kind of. You are working in the Azure portal. You will notice, oh, okay, here I'm using an on-premises group, and just create a new group, replace it, fill the members, of course, and then remove it. Your colleagues, if you do it right, they will not notice that you changed it. So it's just the same access that they keep. It's just done by a cloud-only group. It's not done by a synchronized group anymore. It's an Azure AD group now. And they will not really notice that happened in the background. So here is an approach how you can do it. This is a naming concept, how you can do it. You need, I noticed mainly these 3 group types. So I need groups for my roles, like, let's say, billing reader role or privileged authentication administrator. All these roles for Azure AD administrations, you create a group for them in Azure AD directly, of course. You need RBAC groups. That are the groups that are assigned to Azure subscription or resource groups or resources itself. And here, I think that's the most important point. It actually makes no sense that you use an on-premises group and assign it to an Azure subscription. It makes more sense to create an Azure AD group and assign it to the subscription. So here's the approach. If you're on-premises Active Directory gets compromised or gets taken over or whatever, you're not in the position to edit these groups anymore. You have to think about that. You can't add a member to the group anymore. You have the risk that somebody is changing these groups. If he is already inside your Active Directory on premises, he can really elevate his power into the cloud, kind of. And with this approach, it's 2 different worlds, it's 2 different groups. And these groups, if you're doing it all in Azure AD, it's the only place where you can edit them is in Azure AD itself. So you have to find a cloud-only admin account, have to find his password, have to go over his MFA, and then you would be in position to edit this group. So you see the picture comes together. You have really small chance that you will get into the Azure portal with an on-premise attack. And now, if you use cloud-only groups, it's not possible that somebody places him into an on-premises group and then he gets more power in Azure AD. So that will not happen anymore if you do it like this. Another thing where you need to assign groups maybe is Azure Enterprise apps. I will talk about these apps later. Here you need to assign groups too. And here's just a really generic naming concept from Microsoft, how you can do it. It's called AAD, Azure Active Directory. This is a role group and the description and the kind of the permission level. And here is the subscription description and the level of the permission this user has. So you would go into Azure AD, create your cloud-only admin accounts, create your cloud-only groups, assign them to, let's say, a subscription, and then you would see only cloud-only groups and admins account in them to manage all these resource types. After you have done this, it's almost the same. Of course, remove the on-premises groups. Here you have to really take care about this. That's important that you only remove the groups that you have taken care of, that you have replaced. So if you would, maybe you would lose access if you remove the wrong group. So just take care of what you're doing here. And of course, for groups, you need to have some automation in place too. And if you are creating role groups like these ones up here, you need to think about that switch. If you are creating a role group, you need to create them as Azure AD role group from the start. You cannot change that later. Just think about that. Maybe you know it already if you have done it. Okay, let's continue with endpoints. In the endpoint area, here you see tons of actions that you can do, and you see that most of them happen in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, but on the top is conditional access again, and maybe you heard that you can use conditional access policies for devices too now for some time. You can use maybe the state of the device and let the access happen or block it. So that is one thing that you can do with conditional access policies. If this device has the newest updates installed, the access is granted. If not, it's blocked. That's just one thing that you can do, but you have to take care that maybe some guy is on the road and doesn't get the newest updates, and then he can't log in anymore. So you have to little bit take care of what you're doing here. But it's there are tons of features now in conditional access for the endpoints too. Endpoints is the thing that the management area is going into the cloud, kind of. So you manage your on-premises devices, your laptops, your mobile devices from the cloud or with a cloud management tool like Endpoint Manager. But of course, you still have all these options. Maybe you are using Microsoft Endpoint Manager already and you know these features, so I don't want to mention all of them. Maybe let's say Azure AD Join is one thing that they are recommending for the future that you should think about. Most of us have our devices hybrid joined these days. And of course, Microsoft is saying that you should think about Azure AD Join in the future. Maybe you can think about setting up your newest hardware, your newest laptops, let's say, and join them into Azure AD directly and not hybrid join them anymore. That would be one thing to do. Another thing, of course, is Defender for Endpoint. That is still there, also renamed. And of course, it fits into the picture. It's collecting the signals that you saw on that slide, and it's protecting your endpoints from the newest attacks too. So that is one thing that you should think about. Maybe you can use Defender for Endpoint for your devices and don't need, let's say, a third-party security solution anymore. Because if you are managing your devices with Endpoint Manager, of course, Defender for Endpoint fits really good into the picture and makes a third-party obsolete, kind of. But yeah, that's a big change, and maybe you can think about that in the future, but it would be a good thing to do. Good. Let's proceed with apps. That's kind of a favorite. That's kind of my favorite one to talk about. That was the one I was working a lot in the last year. Here, the main goal or the main idea here is to establish Azure AD as your identity provider. So this is, maybe you heard about that and you're familiar with it, but I explain it just a little bit for you, those of you who are not. You can, with Azure Enterprise app, you can connect your other apps that are running somewhere else. You can connect them now to Azure AD. So you send the login page to Azure AD. The user logs in with his company account, with his usual Microsoft, with his Active Directory account that he knows, and then he gets access to the third-party app, let's say, I don't know, let's say Zoom or something. And then he can, if he wants to log in to Zoom, he gets directed to the Azure AD login page. he enters his credential and he comes back into the Zoom admin or the Zoom console, and then he can start working. So that is how it goes. And in Azure Enterprise app, there is a kind of a marketplace where you can configure tons of apps that are pre-configured by Microsoft, and it's really easy to connect them. So the idea here is to create the same login experience every login that happens from an end user. And then if you're really pushing this, the end user will benefit from SSO in the background. So at the start of the workday, he will log into the first application that he starts with Microsoft login. You can brand the login portal that he knows he's in the right place. He sees his company logo and it's fine. He enters the credentials and he comes in, and then he starts the next application, the next, and it's all connected through SSO in the background, and he doesn't need to log in anymore the whole day. So here is one mentioned here that get rid of ADFS. That's maybe one of the ideas that's behind it, that you kind of outsource the login experience to Azure AD and don't use ADFS anymore, maybe for the future. Of course, I know there are tons of ADFS servers out there and it's not that easy to replace them, but just think about that in the future. And I have to say, if you are really doing this for all your application, it gets really comfortable for the end user. We have some customers that have most of their applications connected, and for the end user, he just logs into one application. He's fine for the whole workday, let's say. Yeah, and of course, there is a solution for legacy apps. Azure Application Proxy is one separate solution to use for really old apps. Let's say if you have some of them, of course, you can install a connector. It's a kind of a separate connector to Azure AD. It really works fine for older applications too. So that's the point, I would say. And here it comes Defender for Cloud Apps into the picture. That's a really powerful tool to analyze all of your apps in the whole environment. I was really surprised when I first saw it, what you can do in there. Normally it's advertised to discover shadow IT, but it can do a lot more. You can see all your apps that are used by your end users. You can see how much that they are using it. You can see if somebody uses Dropbox and maybe it's not allowed to use Dropbox, and you can block it. You can control sharing informations. If somebody puts maybe an employee number into the Teams chat, you can block that right away. So it's really powerful what you can do with this. Maybe you should look at it if you don't know it. It's really a good tool to control your apps and control your whole environment. And the last point I would like to mention it. Maybe it's not in that specific area. It's not really right here, but I just put it somewhere because the clock is ticking here. Maybe you heard it already. Modern authentication will be disabled by Microsoft on the 1st of October this year. So it's really coming soon. And you can analyze your logins using old protocols, using these legacy protocols, really easy in Azure AD. And of course, you can kind of filter them down and can filter them down to a person, to an app that is using legacy authentication. So that's the strategy to go. You can analyze the logins first in Azure AD. And here, this topic, I want to point out, we are checking it at this moment with multiple customers of us. maybe an iPhone, maybe an end user has an iPhone and uses Apple email, and Apple email connects by an old protocol. Apple solved this, but the user has to connect the mailbox on his iPhone again. So he has to remove the mailbox from his iPhone and connect it from fresh. And then the change will happen in the background. Apple email, the app will use modern authentication. That is possible. That is no problem anymore for Apple email. But the user has to do this, and you have to show him how he has to do it. So that this point here has a lot of organization, a lot of end user communication that you will have to do until October. So maybe you should start analyzing this tomorrow too. So I see a lot of tasks that are coming together for you tomorrow. And later on, if it not happen on 1st of October automatically, you can start blocking legacy authentication by conditional access policies too. So this happens in conditional access policy too. Just block the old protocols and it's fine. Yeah, that's one thing we noticed. If we are configuring this, you see strange logins happen on legacy authentication apps. As soon as you activate modern authentication, these apps are fine, and you can see unusual logins on all the legacy authentication apps. So it's the same thing as soon as you have this door here is still open, the attacks will happen there. And as soon as you close it, you should be fine. Just two details about these topics, about that topic enterprise app. I want to point out, especially if you should check your settings that you have configured in the Azure portal for enterprise applications. This is if a user wants to log in into, let's say, Miro or something, whatever. Maybe you know Miro. That's a kind of a dashboard in the browser, and there's a button for M365 login, and he clicks on it, and he enters his company email account and his address. And then if you have this switch here on yes, the enterprise app in Azure AD will be created automatically, and this is not really a good thing, because the user can register it itself, and you should control these apps as an admin and not the user. So you should take care of these settings here just as a detail, and you can configure that he can request it. That is one way to go. He can log in, and then he gets a message that says your login is prevented, but you can send a request to your admin. And then you as an admin will receive an email or a message that the user Martin tried to access Miro, and you can allow it or not. And just on the next slide, I would really like to show you one example, especially because this is one I got. This is not one I saw. This is one I got actually. This is an app. One user here, I will blur it out. But this user up there tried to access an application that is called Group Calendar by the vendor NextSet. Yeah, this looks already suspicious, but this looks like super suspicious. This app tries to get all these permissions in Azure AD. And this is called consent phishing. Microsoft defined that name for this. And you should really take care about that in the future. If you have configured it like this, if you are getting these requests, you should really take care that you are allow or what you are not, what you are blocking. So this is for sure one application to block. And I have to say, I got the same request 2 weeks later, and the name was different. So it is just I think the end user doesn't really know what he didn't know what's going on, and maybe it just looked like a nice application to use, and he tried to log in, and then he couldn't and sent me the request. So that's the thing that happened, and now I see as an admin, oh wow, okay, this application tries to access my whole Azure AD. So that is one thing you have to prevent really bad. I don't know what would happen if I allow it. I don't really know what's going on. So really take care of these. Yeah, if you have the switch on, yes, you can go into the Azure portal, go through your enterprise application, you can monitor them, you can delete just the inactive ones, you can analyze which applications are in use, which permissions are they using. So you can look this up. It's not that big of a deal. You can all check that in the Azure portal, and you can delete if you have some apps like this. You just delete them right away. Yeah, just take care of this. Good. As time proceeds, we should proceed faster. This area data, anyway, I'm not that big of a data guy, so that just I can point out some actions here too, of course. That's a full-time job these days. If you're a data scientist or something, you have your tools right here. So, of course, Microsoft Zero Trust is also providing actions and tools here in that area too, of course. Maybe a lot of you have heard about that. You should label your data, make an inventory. Where is my data? Is it sensitive or not? And you can achieve that with all these tools here. DLP is here for a long time. I think that is not really new. Azure Pure Review is really new. That's a bigger one for a whole environment with multi-cloud and our SaaS app, where you can discover all your data that is residing there, and you can analyze it and control it. Yeah, just a few suggestions here what you can do in the data area, and this is also really underrated in most of the companies. That's one thing you should really do to achieve the zero trust picture. But the data area, you don't have the know-how, you don't have the personnel, the colleagues who does this, who knows how to do this, who knows the whole picture where our data is. So that's a complicated one to solve, I have to admit. Yeah, but yeah, just for you as advice, I place it here. You can look it up and maybe try to find somebody that does it. If we are continuing to the infrastructure area, now it's kind of switches to options that you have. I provided you more actions in the past, but now it kind of switches to tools or products that you can use for infrastructure and network on the next slide. So of course, in the infrastructure section or area, of course, it's recommended that you are running it in Azure, of course, VMs, databases, whatever. And there's a tool to control the whole infrastructure picture. I'm sure you heard about it. It's called Azure Arc. It's hybrid management and operation tool, how they call it these days. You can kind of get an inventory of all your infrastructure assets wherever they are running. So you can install the Azure Arc agent on your VMs, in on-premises, in other cloud providers, and you will see all your infrastructure assets in the Azure Arc console. It's a tool I really like. It's not it has not a tons of options, but I think it's really they will build new options really soon. These days it has inventory itself. You have a picture of all your assets. That's a good thing to have, of course, already. And Of course, also in the infrastructure perspective, we have to care about change management, patching, monitoring, login, automation, and security. These topics we have for years. But if our infrastructure is running in different places, it's not getting easier. And Azure Arc is one tool to confront this. So, yeah. You can. I really like the update management from that is included. This is almost free. You just pay for log analytics that is collected in the background. You can. Let's make an example. You can patch your servers if they are running in Azure, if they're running on premises, if you are running in our cloud providers, you can patch them through Azure Update Management and Azure Arc. And it's really going fine. We have implemented this from time to time, and it's really, if you did patch management in the past, you know it's kind of a pain, and it's really nice with Azure Update Management to patch all your system. So this is underrated too, I would say. You should look into it if you don't know it. Of course, you can expand the security picture for this too. So you can use Defender for Cloud, renamed too, by the way. This was called Azure Security Center. Now it's called Defender for Cloud, and it shows you the whole security situation for your Azure Arc assets or your Azure assets that you are running. So you have a security inventory, you see all your assets, and then you see security score, recommendation, alerts. And the interesting thing here is that you will get these recommendations for your, let's say, on-premises VMware VMs. You will get security recommendations through Azure Arc. You can use Defender for Cloud and get rid of your third-party security solutions on your VMware VMs if you want. Of course, a lot of customers or people have a third-party security tool running on their VMs, and it's kind of a big change, but that's one thing that you can do now, just to mention it. And of course, that's one topic I think all of you have heard in the meantime. Infrastructure as code is still a really big thing, especially also in Zero Trust, of course. So you should think about deploying your infrastructure components with templates. You can use whatever you want. That's just 3 examples here. I want to point out especially Azure Bicep. That's one solution I just learned in 2 or 3 weeks for myself. I'm not that coder guy or whatever. I was never a developer, so it was still a new thing to do, to learn to code for me. And Azure Bicep is really easy code to learn, and you will make really fast progress if you are doing it. So if this is still new for you, I would recommend maybe you look into Azure Bicep. That's an easy way to learn it. Yeah, maybe you think other tools are better. Of course, maybe they have some advantages and disadvantages. Of course, that's just 3 suggestions for that. Good. Okay, let's come together to network. Of course, on the base, the base is, of course, every time is network. So here is also not specific actions that you can take, but specific tools that you can use these days to get the Zero Trust perspective in network area too. So the main goals here are not really new. Maybe the first one is we have not the same picture anymore, of course. It's not just one network. If anybody is inside, he is fine, and if he's outside, he is blocked. That would be easy, but it's not like that anymore, unfortunately. Of course, we have people and devices everywhere. So we have to kind of secure our corporate perimeter from a different perspective now. Of course, we should encrypt all the communication. That's one thing you can imagine. That's not really new. That's one thing you should do anyway. And here come policies in place too. Of course, I will come back to that later. And this one is not really new. You should do. That's the first one here below here too. You should do network segmentation in the cloud, let's say. Of course, if you have a lot of Azure VNets, if you have the hub spoke model, landing zones, whatever, you should really make small networks, divide them for higher security, place your Azure resources into different subnets. Of course, it's really, network security is really highly rated in the zero trust picture. So you should really, this is the last topic, but it should be maybe the first one to care about network security. If you are building your Azure environment, you will start with network anyway, and if you do it just right from the start, it will be a lot easier. If you have to kind of change everything, it will be hard to get your networks rearranged. Yeah, you just a couple of tools how to implement zero trust actions into network. Let's say with web application firewall, with Azure firewall itself. Here is the description and for what it is. So this is the solution that you have, let's say, for different layers and different network layers. And here is the manual that you can download or look at. Of course, all Microsoft products, all Azure onboard products, of course. There are in the marketplace, you know it, there are tons of other providers, but of course the Microsoft Zero Trust picture is showing the Microsoft products, of course. Yeah, that's a few just thoughts or actions that you can take, that you should think about, yeah, in the network area. Good. Here is another slide that showing all these products that I show you are coming together on this slide. I have stole this also, I have to admit, from the Microsoft Security Reference Architecture. It's a really nice slide. So let's see. It has really nice animations. But just let's skip to see the whole picture. It is a quite big picture at the end. So this is the whole thing, but yeah, it looks kind of, it's too much, but yeah, you can download the slides, look at it when you have time, in your quiet time. So just to point out, you have to, you see here all the areas. Defender for Cloud can be used for these services here. Here are the solution for Azure AD, endpoints, and everything I told you. Here you see, just as an overview, what is going on in which area, which tool to use, and you can go back to my plan and look all the actions up, just as an overview, to at the end of this presentation to get a picture of what is going on where. Yeah, we didn't really speak about Microsoft Sentinel because it's mentioned on the next slide, but that is a cloud-based CM tool to analyze all the events that are going on, all the security events, how to handle this. Yeah, maybe I'll mention it a little bit more on the next slide. But here you can see Defender for Cloud especially has a really huge range for services that it can be used for. And of course, the identity solutions that I mentioned are here. So yeah, I really recommend take your time, look at this, think about what you have already in place. That is one thing we see a lot. The customers have a couple of these solutions have these licenses already, but the solutions are not really configured. So you can configure it and use it. Maybe you have pay for it already anyway. So yeah, of course, somebody needs to take care about it. That's an important thing to say. It makes no sense to configure Microsoft Sentinel if nobody looks into it. But if you have the options, maybe you can just do a proof of concept, check it out, and maybe onboard it for the future if you have the colleagues that will look into it. Good. Here is another overview of all the security tools. This is especially for the security tools I showed you. A few of them you saw, or maybe almost all of them you saw. So this is an overview of the tools where zero trust happens. You saw on the last slides during these presentations you saw zero trust happens everywhere, or in a lot of areas, but here are the main tools to configure it. Of course, we have Azure AD for the whole identity area, Defender for endpoints, Defender for servers, let's say, is also there, Defender for cloud apps. So that's the whole picture for your apps in your environment. And at the bottom here again is Sentinel to, let's say, analyze all these things are going on and all the events that will happen in your environment in the future. So yeah, I know there are a lot of tools, tons of configurations to manage, but maybe I hope I gave you some idea where to start, how to approach this. So I would say let's wrap this up all together. Let's make a kind of a conclusion for all of this I have told you. Yeah, we're almost done with the time anyway. So zero trust, what is it really? So now you should know it a little bit more. It's kind of a new way how to approach security. It's kind of a new strategy to look at security in these days. If you have multiple areas, multiple location, users everywhere, data everywhere, it's kind of a tool set how to approach this, of course. And I think this one you noticed during the presentation. You can onboard, you can do these actions that I have showed you, and tomorrow there will be new features, there will be new attacks. So there will be no time to say we have done zero trust and we are fine. So this is an ongoing story and it will continue with new features. Unfortunately, there will be new attacks and Microsoft hopefully provides new features to confront them, and then you are coming into the picture as an admin and you have to configure it. You have to know about it. That's one important thing too, that you know what is going on, what are the new features, how can I enable them for my company. That is a task that takes tons of my time. So yeah, that is a complicated one. You also saw that the areas where zero trust happens are really, really different. And of course, I mentioned it in the data area, especially, you really need to have different people working together on the zero trust picture. So maybe you take these presentations, show it to different people, and they need to start working in their area. So we went to the network guys for an example and said, hey, look, we have all these new tools here. We have all these new recommendations. Have you ever heard of zero trust anyway? You should implement this. You should use this, or just think about to use this. Check this out, whatever. So this is a lot of work too, to enable this to all your colleagues and tell them about it and to build your knowledge. Of course, that takes tons of time to build the know-how internally in your company, or provide these solutions for your customers. as you saw, it's in the core, it's all about policies. So if you are using different zero trust approaches, it's all handled by policies, mostly handled by policies in the different products. Of course, you configure conditional access policies, you configure Microsoft Endpoint Manager policies for your devices. So zero trust is a lot happening in policies. So that's one important thing to say here. And as you saw on the last slide or on the in the presentation, it's happening in different kind of rules, policies, and configurations too. And yeah, the last point you just saw on the last slide that there was about 8 or 9 security tools and portals. So yeah, that's a important one. Yeah, to check out. Just know where are my tools for which topic am I using which tool. So that is one thing to know for sure. Good. Okay. We are almost through. There is some time to ask questions, of course. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. I will answer them later, of course. Or you can drop an email or just talk to me on Teams, whatever. Just don't hesitate to ask something, and I will provide you the link to download the slides in the chat. Now, 5 minutes after the presentation, I will provide the download link. And of course, Manu will send you the link too. So you will get the plan to click on the links. Of course, I know you have to click on all these links and get all the steps. So I will provide the download link really soon after that presentation. Yeah, and for the end, I hope you don't feel like Mr. Clinton here. So he didn't understand anything. So I hope you understand a lot more. And I hope, really hope that was valuable for you. And I know it was a lot, and it was a lot of text. Just download the slides, check it out. Start maybe in your area, provide the slides to your colleague, and try to approach the different areas. And I'm sure you will get on the way at least. I know it takes time, it takes know-how, but I'm sure if you're doing it step by step and now you have a little bit of a plan at least, I hope you will proceed in this year and make your company, make your customer more secure. I really hope that you can that we all can achieve higher security through the Zero Trust framework. And yeah, I said it already. Maybe we will continue with some demo sessions in the future. We will just hear about the feedback, and maybe I can show you some specific configuration sometime in a future session. And yeah, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me. And I hand it back to Manu or Thomas.
Yes, thank you very much, Martin, for your great presentation in our meetup group. So far, I don't see any questions in the chat. Just other comments like "well done," what it really was. So yes, as there are no questions, I would say thanks everyone who was listening and participating, and have a great evening, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.